With the amount of weapons available in Elden Ring, it can be hard to pick which one you want to upgrade and carry with you through the rest of the game. But luckily there are some tricks you can use to make sure that you can turn every weapon into a killing machine, and you can do all of this without any story progression. In this video we'll tell you about some amazing weapon arts that work on any weapon, a way to help you upgrade pretty much any weapon you want to +6, and we'll also show you some cool weapons we found that you can try these tactics on. Now the first and easiest way to make a weapon more powerful is by making sure it has a strong weapon art. And while using these special moves costs FP, which means you can't use them infinitely, having the right one on a weapon can significantly increase your damage by adding a powerful new attack to your arsenal. And a very good example of that is the Hoarfrost Stomp. This powerful weapon art lets you perform a quick stomp on the ground, after which a cone of ice crystal spreads from your location. These deal a bit of damage, but after a short time they will explode, dealing way more damage than the initial hit. And this attack also builds up the frost status, which like blood loss causes enemies to instantly lose a large amount of health, as well as lowering their damage absorption and stamina regeneration when the effect procs, so a very strong debuff as well. Now thanks to how quick Hoarfrost Stomp is and how little FP it costs, it's really a great move that you'd want on any weapon. And lucky for us, we are able to put it on pretty much any weapon we want if we get the Ash of War from this spot on the map, next to the entrance of the Caria Manor gate. To reach it, we need to get into the Liurna region first, so we start all the way over here at the Stormhill Shack and then right north to this broken bridge over here. You can carefully make your way down to the left here, then follow the path along the cliff until we reach the lake facing cliffs, Grace Point. From there we want to make our way down to the lake and then go all the way over here to the foot of the 4 belfries, Grace Point. And then it's just a matter of following the road north. You need to pass through an illusory wall in the King's Realm ruins, so just hit the wall at this spot and then you can pass through. There will also be some magical arrow barrages on your run up to the manor, but staying off the main road should help you avoid these. Now if you're still having trouble finding this manor, we went more in depth on the route here in another video where we discussed the amazing Sword of Night and Flame, which you can also get very close to this Caria Manor Grace Point, so go watch that one if you need more details. And then after reaching the manor gate we move east until we reach a small body of water. And we want to check for footsteps here, as there is an invisible teardrop scarab running around the lake. Use his footsteps to check where he goes to intercept and hit him. I was lucky enough and was already in the right spot when I got here, but as soon as you kill him he drops the Hoarfrost Stomp Ash of War, which as you can see in the description works on any melee weapon, so that's most weapons in the game. As an added bonus on top, you can also change the damage type of any weapon you put the ash on to frost, meaning your weapon's damage is partially magical and you cause frost buildup with the weapon too. And if you're tired of your current weapon and want to try a new one, you can reapply this ash to any other melee weapon without it costing any resources, and you can do this as many times as you want. In order to swap out ashes you need the whetstone knife, which you can find very early in the game over here in the gatefront ruins by heading down these stairs and opening the chest. And from that point onward you can just exchange ashes of war between weapons at any grace point you find. Before we continue and tell you about a cool weapon you can find nearby to use this ash on, remember to leave a like if you liked the video and remember to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. So if you're still looking for a nice melee weapon, we can actually go back to the Caria Manor, as there is a really unique whip we can find there, the Urumi. This weapon is effectively a combination of a whip and a sword, and it has this really cool charged heavy attack where you fully extend the blade to pierce enemies from afar. It also scales really well with dexterity, so if that's a stat you've been putting points into, you will see a lot of extra damage with this weapon. And while the default weapon art Kick is certainly a useful one, if you want something that will help you melt bosses and regular enemies alike, you can put that Hoarfrost Stomp Ash we just got on it. It actually pairs really well with this Urumi, as it's also a weapon with slightly more range, so you have a lot of powerful moves you can use while keeping enemies at bay. So to find this weapon we want to carefully make our way to the second grace point in the manor lower level. So we go in, walk around and hug the left wall following this route, and be really careful as there are both enemies hanging on the walls and buried in the ground here. You can use a spirit summon to help you out if you want though, and as soon as we see a building entrance in the distance we just run past the enemies and head upstairs to activate the grace point. From there we want to head out and run along the catwalks. There's going to be some enemies spawning in, but we just want to ignore them, then head straight past the first tower. Some more enemies will spawn, but we just keep on running, then turn left at the second tower, and now we want to run and jump off on our right here. You'll land on the manor walls, and if we go a bit right from here we can spot a group of my least favorite enemy in the game, hand spiders sitting around around an item. Luckily for me, there's only some small ones, so fairly easy to deal with, and then we can just grab this amazing Urumi Whip for ourselves. Don't worry, by the way, if this one is not your thing, we'll have more weapons later in the video. There will be timestamps for those too, so you can skip ahead if you want. And all the weapons mentioned in this video work great with the Hoarfrost Stomp ash we mentioned, as well as another more fiery ash of war that we'll also be covering in a bit. But first though, we got ourselves a shiny new weapon, but it's unupgraded. And while you likely found some smithing stones already while traveling through the open world, you probably don't have a whole lot of them. Time to change that then, as there is an item we can get that will allow us to just buy all the smithing stones we need whenever we want. You find it over here in the Raya Lucaria Crystal Tunnel. It's near the top part of the giant lake in the Liurna region on the eastern side over here. The entrance is a bit hidden in a rock wall, so it can be kind of hard to spot, but once you do, you will see an elevator that takes you down, which will lead you to a grace point. Now from here, we just want to progress throughout the dungeon, as the item we want will be dropped by the dungeon boss. Now be prepared, because it's a bit of a long run to the bottom, so I recommend taking your time and using that Hoarfrost Stomp to kill most of the enemies. The route here is pretty straightforward, so it's kind of hard to get lost, and you will mostly be fighting these minor enemies, but there are a couple of these marionette soldiers here as well, so be careful for those. But after taking the second elevator down, you should have arrived at the Crystallian boss. Now this boss likes to hop around the arena a lot, so I definitely recommend using a spirit summon to split the aggro. Like the minor enemies, physical attacks will bounce right off her and do very little damage, but I was able to use the weapon art from the Sword of Night and Flame to nuke her down. Again, we mentioned that weapon in an earlier video, so go watch that one if you want to know how to get it. And if you manage to beat this boss, you will be rewarded with a smithing stone miner's bell bearing. Now in case you didn't know, you can turn these bell bearings in at the Twin Maiden Husk Merchant in Roundtable Hold. This is an area you will eventually reach after your companion Melina teleports you there from a grace point, and when you're there you can find the Twin Maiden Husks by going through the door next to this priest looking guy, then turning right and walking into the next room. If you talk to them and then choose the offer bell bearing option, you can give them the one we looted from the boss. This will expand their inventory, and it means that from now on you can buy an unlimited amount of rank 1 and 2 smithing stones from these maiden husks, allowing you to upgrade any weapon you find to +6. And you do of course need some runes for this, so if you don't have enough, check your inventory if you have some of these golden runes on hand, or use a rune farm to get yourself the resources you need. You can of course use the one we mentioned in the Sword of Night and Flame video. It's over here on the map. You just need to run down from this Lenne's Rise grace point and dodge some balls, which gives you runes, and you can do that as many times as you like. Now I did the math for these smithing stones. You'll need 12 of each stone to upgrade a weapon to +6, which means it will cost you 28,800 runes to buy the materials you need to upgrade. Also keep in mind that while you can upgrade most weapons with these smithing stones, some unique weapons require somber smithing stones instead. All the weapons mentioned in this video can be upgraded with regular smithing stones, but if you're worried that your favorite weapon might not, just check the upgrade menu at a blacksmith and check which resource is required there. Now there's another cool weapon we can upgrade with regular smithing stones that's very easy to get, which is located in Limgrave, and we don't even need to fight any enemies to get it. This weapon is the Twinblade. Now Twinblades are a bit of a unique weapon type. There aren't that many of them in the game, so this is likely one of the first you will encounter. They're basically the closest thing you're ever going to get to becoming fantasy Darth Maul, which is a good thing in my book. You'll want to wield these with both hands, and it gives you a much better moveset which uses both blades instead of just one per attack. This base version only takes 10 strength and 18 dexterity to use, so it will be a useful weapon for most players. And I'm definitely going to use these more myself. They look very graceful and stylish and are just very fun to play around with. Anyway, to get this, we simply want to head over here to the Dragon-Burned Ruins. These are located in Limgrave, so pretty much next to where you start the game, in the middle of the giant lake where that dragon boss is also roaming around. Don't worry though, we're not going to bother with him, but instead we will head towards the back of the ruins to this exact spot over here. There are some enemies roaming around the ruins, but they're not that strong and we're going to avoid them anyway. Instead, we are looking for a staircase leading down, surrounded by 4 intact walls, so we have to jump over in order to get to this place. And then it's simply a case of walking down the stairs and opening the chest at the bottom to grab yourself the Twinblade, which can of course be upgraded to +6 immediately thanks to the bell bearing we got earlier. And you also see me use the weapon here with another great and easy to get weapon art, the Flame of the Redmanes. Redmanes. While not as overpowered as the Hoarfrost Stomp, it's still a nice and quick attack that shoots an arc of flames forward, so a great tool to deal with multiple enemies at once. Plus, like the Hoarfrost Stomp, this one will work on any weapon type as long as it's melee, and will also allow you to change part of your weapon's damage type to fire. So in order to get this, we ride into the Caelid region. So from the Stormhill Shack, we follow the road all the way over here, past the Saints Bridge and through Summonwater Village until we reach the Rodview Balcony Grace Point over here. We go behind the shack and use torrents to jump over this rock wall, then head dead south until we reach this grace point, Fort Gale North. Now you might have already noticed a lot of different enemies on the road here, but luckily we don't have to bother with any of them, as the only reason we're here is another invisible teardrop scarab. This one is walking along the same path, pretty much just running in circles, so just position yourself somewhere in his footprints, wait for him to make his round, and then strike as soon as he gets close to kill it, and grab yourself the Flame of the Redmanes Ash of War. Now, the best test for all of these new and upgraded weapons is of course a boss fight, and there is actually a boss in the Liurna region that can also add a pretty cool new weapon to our arsenal. This Nightrider Glaive requires a lot of strength to properly wield, but of course remember you can meet the requirements by holding it in two hands, as you can see in the pop-up when you try to equip the weapon. And you can two-hand any weapon by holding Y or triangle and then pressing R1 or RB for your right hand weapon, or L1 or LB for the left. The Nightrider Glaive has a lot of reach and packs quite a big punch, plus it has a pretty neat weapon skill of its own, Spinning Slash, a wide circular slash that you can follow up with a second spin and an overhead strike. But of course, if you'd rather put the Hoarfrost Reach or Flame of the Redmanes Ash on it, you can of course do that too, as those work on any melee weapon. Now in order to get this one, we're going to fight a Nightrider boss, which is a mounted boss that only spawns during night, and this particular one spawns pretty close to the East Raya Lucaria gate. The easiest way to get here is by passing through the academy, for which we need a glintstone key. That can be found over here on the map. This is near the middle of the lake, right above the temple quarter area of the map, just right past the dragon, and grab the key. Then we want to head into the academy, starting from the academy gate down. We ride to here, as there's a path up here. It is guarded by enemies, but they're easy enough to jump around on horseback, and then we follow the path all the way to the giant castle gate with the magic seal on it. Examining the seal with the glintstone key in your inventory will teleport you in front of the academy, so activate the grace point there and then head for the other seal on the northern part of the courtyard. This one will teleport you pretty much next to the grace point you need to be at, so just use that to pass the time to nightfall, and then you should be able to see the boss up ahead. Now it is a mounted boss, and I defeated him on foot because I wanted to use the weapon art on my weapon, but if you don't have a strong one that works against this boss, fighting this guy on horseback will probably give you a lot of an easier time. Upon defeat, he drops a weapon art and the Nightrider Glaive. So there you go, enjoy your new powerful weapons, and of course if you found another cool weapon in the game you want us to talk about, let us know in the comments below or via the input@JorRaptor email address. Remember to leave a like if you liked the video, subscribe so you won't miss the next one, and if you want you can watch our previous video on some amazing armors you can already get very early in the game. For now, thanks everyone so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye!